A reading from John chapter 12, verses 20 to 36. John chapter 12, verses 20 to 36. Now, among those who went up to worship at the festival were some Greeks. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and said to him, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." Philip went and told Andrew, then Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. Jesus answered them, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Those who love their life lose it, and those who hate their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, there will my servant be also. Whoever serves me, the Father will honour. Now my soul is troubled. And what should I say? Father, save me from this hour? No. It is for this reason that I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name." Then a voice came from heaven, "I have glorified it, and will glorify it again." The crowd standing there heard it and said that it was thunder. Others said, "An angel has spoken to him." Jesus answered, "This voice has come for your sake, not for mine. Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be driven out. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." He said this to indicate the kind of death he was to die. The crowd answered him, "We have heard from the law that the Messiah remains forever. How can you say that the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man?" Jesus said to them, "The light is with you for a little longer. Walk while you have the light, so that the darkness may not overtake you. If you walk in the darkness, you do not know where you are going. While you have the light, believe in the light, so that you may become children of the light." After Jesus had said this, he departed and hid from them.
Any of you who has watched sport in the last year will be familiar with an age-old classic of sports coverage, the action replay. Now, more than ever, the ability of the broadcasters, fans, pundits and officials to examine from various angles in 360 degrees, high definition, slow motion, a replay of exactly what happened throughout the game. Now, all of us in churches this time of year are aware what happens in the Easter story. In fact, lots of people outside of the church know the Easter story, but now as we approach Easter, we begin to read these passages in a different way. We take the multiple angle, slow motion replay approach. Through doing that, we bring new life, new truth, new moments where God can speak to us afresh. In this passage from John, I want to specifically zoom in on the opening exchange where it mentions the Greeks. If you didn't know, before Jesus, Christianity was Judaism and the Israelites were the so-called chosen people of God. And if you wanted to be a Jew, you had to behave like a Jew. You had to behave in a certain way, live your life according to the Jewish laws and practices. Now, these Greeks who want to come and see Jesus, they were not part of the story. They weren't the chosen ones. They were outsiders. Jesus never excludes anyone. And looking at this passage, it makes me think, Who do we treat like those Greeks? Who do we exclude from God's story, and how might we address this? Maybe because I'm a father, and if the sound picks up the noise in the background, you'll hear them. I have 2 children under 5. But I think children are some of the most excluded demographics in church. Children are loud, impatient. Children won't sit still for 20-minute sermons. They don't do well with silence. They don't enjoy the cold or uncomfortable seats. They have no filter. But take one look at this demographic, and you might as well expand it to parents too. Children might not fit in your church's expression of worship, but it's not their fault. They're only children. The parents, on the other hand, they should know better. Letting their children move around and make noise, they need to be shushed. They need a glaring eye. They should know that the seat 7 in from the east wall is always occupied by Doris, and someone usually sits there. And then I think, well, if those things apply to parents and children, they apply to new people too. There is so often a familiarity for a service for people who've been there for decades. But if you're new, why don't you know when to stand and sit? Why don't you know the words that are always said? Why aren't you singing along with your gusto? Why can't you find the psalm on the notice sheet? Don't you know that you should be kneeling at the altar rail? Or you can't take communion if you're visiting or haven't been baptised or confirmed or ordained, etc. Thinking about it, the way our religion has developed, our expression of worship is ingrained. We have become the chosen ones, and we are prioritising the way we like things done over letting anyone else become part of the crowd. Of course, I'm using a lot of hyperbole. We're very good at welcoming. We can share a smile, offer biscuits and coffee. But it sometimes seems that the route into church is so complicated. Jesus doesn't exclude people. And I think the disciples had started to figure out this value that Jesus had. The tax collectors, prostitutes, sick, the Samaritans, the women. Jesus didn't care about where your societal status was or how important you were. And the disciples are hesitant, but you see they're kind of getting the idea. They don't just say no to the Greeks. They double check first with each other and then with Jesus. And Jesus, as always, was radical with his inclusion, radical with his way of being. And the challenge for us is to think how we could also be radically inclusive as a church. So often we take the route into churches, you have to behave a certain way, and then you might eventually start to feel like you belong there, and then after even more time you might believe in what we believe. But I think to stop excluding people, we have to accept that people's way into church might be a little different. We might first help them to belong in church, and then they might start to believe in God, and then eventually their behaviour might be changed. And the challenge for us and for me is to encourage people to see Jesus for who he was. I'd rather be known as too inclusive than too exclusive.